Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Championship Check-In podcast with Sam Parkin and myself, Benjamin Bloom, talking about the best division in the world. Sam, I'm going to use one of your quotes. Not a vintage week in terms of talking points as we get into, we'll go chapter and verse on the playoff semi-finals, but all quiet, really.
Yeah, you've gone down the best league in the world route there quite early, mate. Might be a tough sell today. Might be more interesting to talk about the Crews and the Crawleys of this world who served up some fine goals. But yeah, it was quite tough going, wasn't it? But obviously, on the other side of it, it set up so well for Thursday and Friday evening. So yeah, didn't get what we want from those first games, but we'll do our best to go through them and pick out some chances, some refereeing decisions, some highlights, you name it. We've got some time to fill this morning anyway.
If you're listening after the fact on podcast, we love you. If you're here right now on YouTube, get your comments in and we'll do some questions for Sam at the end of the pod and put some bits and bobs up. There's only one place to go for Parkin's pick, though. Okay, tournament football, 2 playoff semi-finals, no goals. So it's beautifully poised, as you said, Sam. But for us to be beautifully poised, we had to go through some less than interesting semi-final first legs. I'm sure the word cagey is going to come up as we're chatting this. So what we'll do, Sam, we'll have a bit of a chin wag. We won't go too long on the games over the weekend, but I'm sure everyone's eager to talk about what's going to happen on Thursday and Friday. Sam, you were working on commentary for Southampton v West Brom. I was at Norwich versus Leeds. Which one should we get out of the way first?
Should we do West Brom, Southampton?
Talk to me.
Yeah, I think I possibly had the better end of the deal here, having watched the latter stages of Norwich Leeds on a screen at the studio I was at. I thought it started really brightly. I thought West Brom started really brightly. And I thought Southampton struggled to get into their rhythm. And I apportioned quite a lot of that down to the new system. I say the new system, the system that was trialled at Ellen Road in the final game of the league season. Went with the 3 centre-halves again. And I just felt that it meant that there was less passing options. Obviously, they've taken a forward player out of the lineup, if you like. So that rhythm and that consistency that we've seen from Southampton in the way they want to play and dominate the ball, it wasn't really evident. There was quite a few uncharacteristic mistakes from the defenders when they were trying to keep possession and trying to progress the ball up the pitch. So I thought that was really evident early on. I think West Brom seized on that and caused quite a few problems from the outset. But like the Norwich Leeds game, it kind of plateaued. I think it's fascinating going into the second leg if Che Adams is going to be fit. I think that was a miss for Southampton. On the flip side, good to see Ross Stewart getting a few minutes, and I don't think the kind of gamble with Mara going up top with Adam Armstrong particularly paid off, considering he was very much on the periphery of the game. So I would expect there to be a change in that forward line, and I'd probably expect there to be a possible change in the shape as well due to that lack of creativity that I just described. What it did do though, Ben, and I think West Brom showed evidence that they like to put balls in the box. Obviously, from set pieces, they're really dangerous. Carl Bartley having a few opportunities. But in the main, the back three did defend the box pretty well for Southampton. So I think from that perspective, it worked.
Well, actually, just crosses, ball, head it, kick it, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, the additional body in there, I think when West Brom got to the byline or got into wide positions, there's only the one chance for Dean Garner that I can recall, which was probably the biggest moment of the game. Fellows down the right-hand side, lovely bit of skill. 2 outstanding balls he put in throughout the game. One for Dean Garner to force a save from McCarthy, and one in the second half that wasn't attacked at all, which was such a waste because of he produced a delicious delivery. So, yeah, in the main, I think the back three helped Southampton defend, but I think they lost something creatively in that shape. So, absolutely something to watch there ahead of the second leg. And I just felt West Brom, really solid in their shape. And it was just whether Johnston on one side or Fellows on the other side could create something on the break. And they very nearly did. That said, I'll be surprised if Thomas Asante starts in that second leg. I think maybe Jed Wallace comes back in and they reconfigure that front line because he was disappointing. And listen, he'd probably take the 0-0 again, wouldn't he, Corberan? But I think they need to have a little bit more invention and probably a little bit more threat going forward if they can believe they can get through in normal time.
I thought it was a great save with the feet from that deflected shot from Stewart. I thought that was in, Sam.
Yeah, that was the kind of biggest minute, 30 seconds of the game, wasn't it? Dean Garner at one end. For such a talented player, nice left-footed player, when it was cut back to him, I think it was Fellows again, I just expected Dean Garner to bend it left-footed towards the far corner, and he opted for power. McCarthy made a relatively straightforward save, and then down the other end, straight away, Stewart afforded too much space. I think it was Bartley and Furlong just so slow to go out and engage him. I think expecting that the offside flag was going to go up. And obviously the effort, I think, deflected, and Palmer did well to save with his legs. But that was it, really, from a Southampton perspective. That and a Flynn Downs effort in the first half. There was not much. And I thought it was interesting, Corberan going to the back three late on. I don't know if you noticed that, but he made a multitude of changes and he went to a back five, in essence. And quite unusual seeing a manager in a home leg of a playoffs essentially declaring with 10 minutes to go, do you know what? The 0-0 will do us on today.
Yeah. So Norwich Leeds, I mean, when the team news came in, Sam, I saw that Johnny Rowe was starting for Norwich. So that kind of boded well. We were sort of trying to pick out what Daniel Farke was doing because there appeared not to be a number 10 unless the number 10 was going to be Archie Gray. And it turned out that he was kind of a number 10, but very much like you're saying in this game, just a little defensive tweak in the shape, not the philosophy, but in the shape, just for an extra body. Russ Martin's obviously done it in terms of a centre half, and Daniel Farke did it in terms of a midfielder. I thought Norwich were the better side for the first 30 minutes, and had they scored in that, then here we go with Leeds then trying to get back into the game. And you used the word declared in your analysis. I totally agree. You're normally looking at about 75, 80 minutes. It felt a little bit like, okay, are we just going to the second leg here and making this a one-off? There's a couple of incidents. Josh Sargent had a header where the defenders touched tight and he puts it wide. Somerville had one, but Angus Gunn stood up well on the near post. There was a penalty shout early on, which was probably just outside, and there was a real tight offside. But there was nothing in it, Sam. And to your point, David Wagner said in his post-game press conference, he said, we said a couple of things. He said, drawing the first game at home is not necessarily a bad thing. And then he said, because of that, every single minute you play in the away leg and it's still level goes in your favour. So I don't know whether he's telling you immediately there he wants penalties. But before we go on to Thursday and Friday, what's your sort of take on the Norwich Leeds side of the ledger?
I suppose a little bit of surprise that Leeds have opted to change the setup a little bit after having, for the majority of the season success. It strikes to me that all is not perfect there, that they're, working maybe on the training ground on slightly different setup. So
It
that
wasn't
was
massively
interesting.
different, Sam. It was the
No,
slightest tweak.
yeah, but you've got quite a lot of goal threat, haven't you? With it, either Bamford or if
It
you
would
could
have been
get
Piru,
James in
wouldn't it?
there, Piru. You could reconfigure it with Nonto maybe as a 10, James wide. There's lots of things he could have done, but that was quite a conservative move, I suppose. I think for Norwich, give or take, that's probably their best 11, maybe Ashley Barnes aside. So
Yeah.
that was a pretty front foot side that they put out. And obviously there were some different dynamics to the way that Leeds went about it. Gruev dropping deep in between the centre halves, as you said, Archie Gray going quite high. So it was a different setup, but yeah, you just worry about their lack of threat, don't you? I suppose at the moment, and the indifferent form of
Can't believe we're saying
Ruta.
that.
Hmm.
I can't believe that because they were the one we said had the most goal threat throughout the season, didn't we?
Yeah, I thought it was a foul on Nonto, but you're right. Whether it was in or out, I'm not too sure. The initial collision was maybe just outside, so they were unfortunate on that. And the offside is, I mean, if it is offside, and it looked to be from the Sky cameras. Daniel Farker's talking about the scouting view, which I presume means the view from the top of the stand.
By Scout, yeah.
But yeah, so they were unfortunate. One of those didn't go their way, but yeah, in the main, there was very, very little between the two sides, and it's kind of what I anticipated. I thought maybe Norwich would edge it. They had the one chance through Josh Sargent, and that was it really. Considering they've had that brilliant home run, yeah, you'd make Leeds slight favourites, but it's very, very slight.
Well, let's talk about these second legs then. Someone asked a great question as well, and you can put this, Sam, on both Southampton and Leeds now. One game at home. Do they stick with their new shapes and ride it out
Mm,
for the whole 180 minutes? Or it could be
mm,
210 if there's extra time, couldn't it? Or, because I bet you what you like, either of those sides go behind, they're going to go back to
mm.
4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 shape, aren't they?
Yeah, the Southampton one was interesting because early on, Jack Stevens, who was playing a left-sided centre half, he was the one that was going into midfield. So he was the one that was kind of, I want to
He did
say,
that when they
inverting.
played in a 4, though, Sam, and he was playing
Yeah,
left back.
yeah. Obviously, Carl Walker-Peters and Manning. Normally, one of them goes in there. Sometimes two. But Stevens was doing it early on, but actually that kind of subsided as the game went on. I'd be very surprised if they didn't go back to the 4-3-3. It feels again like it's a more conservative setup, the one they had the other day. I think maybe Adam Armstrong off the right, which he's played for the majority of the seasons, and if Che Adams is fit, he'd come in back down the middle, and then you've got a number of options on the left hand side with Mara probably could play wide, Fraser, Adozie, Brooks, even you could probably have there. So yeah, I'd be very surprised. Leeds, I think that's probably tougher to call, just because there isn't, those informed players, is there, at the top end of the pitch. But I think just because they've had such success during the home games playing that way, I would be surprised if he stuck at this. That must have been, in my mind, the setup for the away game and the away game only. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's at a risk of making the game too open. I don't think that would be the case. I think with the two holders, they have been too open in that midfield. So maybe you can make the argument that Gray plays at fullback or comes and impacts it off the bench, and you go with Gruev and Kamara from the off. That would make more sense to me rather than approaching a home game at Ellen Road where the fans are going to be expecting you to be on the front foot, playing with three midfielders who aren't really goal threats. That would definitely surprise me.
Well, let's look at Thursday night first then. So, I mean, if I'm playing this out in my head, what would a Leeds win look like? Either they click and they get roared on and they win by a couple of goals, or very nervy, very tight, and someone scores in the 65th minute and sees it through. The draw, and then into extra time feels like the same game again, with Norwich maybe sitting in from the word go rather than sort of starting on the front foot as they did. And the Norwich away win, we all know what that looks like. That's sit in, nick a goal, sit in some more, isn't it, Sam? And then, extra time, penalties. You almost start to feel if it goes past and into extra time towards penalties, because it's Elland Road and that place gets a little bit nervy, doesn't it? And because it's David Wagner who's won these 2 penalty shootouts before, you almost think, and he's right with his comments in the press conference, if it goes past 90 minutes, are you starting to side with Norwich on the penalties?
Yeah, quite possibly. I just think this is going to be more of the same. I could see it being penalties, absolutely. Yeah, if I was to hedge my bets now, I'd probably say it might be level after 90 minutes and we'll either get a goal in extra time or we'll go all the way. I said, last week, to a little bit of derision, I think, in certain quarters. I saw a couple of comments that, how can I be saying that this is on such a knife edge with the points difference between the two sides during the season?
Well, it was.
Yeah, it was. And I think you have to factor in the form Leeds are in. You have to factor in the loss of confidence in some of the players, especially those forward ones. And you have to take the recent results and recent defeats into consideration. So that's where we are. That's why we are where we are. Nothing between the two sides. So yeah, I think again this could be decided by 1 goal.
So I'll go for the first thing I said. Leeds in normal time, 1-0, but nervy as hell. Do you know what I mean? There's just nothing in it, and might even be like a muggy goal or something. His corner goes in and gets bimbled over the line. So that's what I'll go for. I'll go for Leeds to qualify, nervy as hell in 90 minutes. What you got a prediction for me, Sam?
Yeah, I'll give you a prediction. Can I take the draw then? I'll take the draw and I'll take Leeds on spot kicks.
Wow. Mate, honestly, I've always said about Elland Road, because I was there at that Derby semi-final. I've always said it's like a massive big thing in their favour, but that's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in a football stadium before. Just the collapse of the team, the players, everybody together with the nerves so I just don't know how that. If we got Leeds fans in the chat, I don't know if there's been penalty shootouts there.
Well,
before,
I lost the penalty shootout at that home end, so there's a method to my madness there.
Penalty shootout at Leeds?
Yeah, for Swindon in the League Cup. So
no way.
The game that Paul Robinson scored the header in. So I struck a really bad penalty and it hit the inside of the post and cannoned in off Paul Robinson. So I did somehow manage to get mine over the line. But yeah, I take what your point about Wagner, absolutely, and penalty shootouts. And that does worry me a little bit. But I just think maybe that crowd and that pressure may just impact Norwich.
Daniel Farker has said in about his last 100 press conferences, this is a young team, this is a young team, this is a young team, over and over and over again. Just quickly, Sam, penalty shootout, do you go up first?
I think I did go up first. Yeah, I'd normally go first or fifth because I was taking quite a lot of penalties around that time, but I didn't like it. I was never a great penalty taker, to be honest. I was a reluctant penalty taker. Right foot hit the left-hand post as we're looking at it and cannoning off Robinson. So yeah, we shall see.
Like it. Okay, let's go down to St. Mary's, which I think will hopefully be a bit more open. I'm putting this on Russ Martin's shoulders, Sam, on the basis it's just not his thing to lock up and defend, is it? So you saw the whole thing and commentated on it. How did you see the second leg going?
I think that yeah, that it would be a big surprise to me if there wasn't changes for Southampton. Yeah, I think he'll probably go back to the flat back four. That's my feeling. Yeah, I suppose he could play the two up, couldn't he? He could play that. He could play the same system like the 3-5-2 and play Che Adams and Adam Armstrong if they're available. I mean, that would be a massive blow if Che Adams isn't available, because I think Russell Martin said that he's been kind of in his best form the last few weeks of the season. He's really been at it. But you could do that. But I just like Adam Armstrong off the right-hand side. I think he gives you such a goal threat off there. Then you can get another wide player in. The two number 8s, if you like, I know they've really missed Stuart Armstrong over the last couple of weeks. I think he was arguably one of their best players this season, maybe along with Adam Armstrong and Bednarek. So to not have him available, you need a bit more from Smallbone and Aribo. Saw flashes from Aribo the other day. But yeah, I would anticipate them going back to the 4-3-3. That's my hunch. For West Brom, I can't see there being too many changes in setup or probably in the game approach. I just think maybe Thomas Asante seems to be lacking a little bit of confidence. So maybe Jed Wallace comes in there. And I'd probably keep the rest the same as it is if they've avoided injury the other day. And I think they'll approach it in the same manner. I think they'll be resolute. They'll be deep set. They'll hope to maybe get something from a set piece or get something through one of those wide players. And maybe introduce Swift, Thomas Asante and the like later in the game. So I can't see anything changing other than maybe the Southampton kind of starting formation, maybe the reintroduction of Adams. And I expect them to dominate the football probably in a different way to what we saw at the Hawthorns, where they just struggled for that rhythm. They struggled for that kind of domination of the ball, which they really, really want to fatigue the opponent to moving around. And I'd anticipate that bit to be more evident in the second game.
Okay. I feel like shaking it up on these predictions here because it feels too obvious to have Leeds and Southampton in the final, doesn't it? So let's, for no reason other than that, I'll back West Brom, but I'll back West Brom to do it in extra time. And you've given me my narrative there. He always brings Swift on with 15 to go or whatever. So let's have him coming on with 5 to go, knowing that extra time's coming. And a Corberon masterclass. So I'll go extra time, but West Brom winning it 1-0. What say you, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so torn. It could go either way. You can make a strong case for Norwich here. You can make a strong case for West Bromwich Albion. I think it's more likely that Southampton get through by scoring and Leeds maybe have to go all the way. That's the narrative I've built this morning, just because I think there's more informed strikers, confident forward players in Southampton's ranks maybe than at Ellen Road at the moment. So for that reason, I'm going to go for Southampton to nick it, maybe 1-0, 2-1, normal time.
So both Sam and I have gone for the caginess to continue. No, none of this normal glorious playoff, 3-4 goals in each game. We'll clip this one out and stick it up. So let us know your takes down there in the comments. And we will revisit next week when we know who has qualified for Wembley for the whatever. They had 30 million on every year, don't they, Sam? Let's call it the 200 million pound game this year. Right. We're thin on the ground. Let's go to Worldie of the Week. Okay, you've probably spotted we have literally no championship goals to talk about. So, Sam, and the chat. In fact, let's get the chat active now. Talk to us, not your favourite playoff goal, but what do you think the best playoff goal is? Stick to semi-finals for now. We'll forget the finals, but we've got no worldies to talk about. Sam, if I was going to talk about my favourite, it would be Marcus Stewart's second goal for Ipswich at the Reebok Stadium, Bolton. Although you have to put his 2 goals that day together as one of the greatest doubles I've ever seen. The goal I wanted to mention, though, Sam, is the most criminally forgotten goal in playoff history, because before Troy Deeney scores the greatest narrative goal of all time in Watford Leicester, Mate Vidra has one come over his shoulder, volleys it in first time, and no one even knows that goal exists. So I will go for a bit of a contrarian hipster pick there, Sam. I'll go for Mate Vidra for Leicester, for Watford versus Leicester. What was it, 2012 or something?
Yeah, I'm a bit thin on the ground here, mate. I think for narrative, you've already mentioned, obviously, Deeney. The Jack Marriott one, I think, was a really nice finish.
I was there,
and just
mate.
a colossal moment, wasn't it? Didn't our mate Jim Magilton get some famous goals in the semi-final once upon a time?
Scored a hat trick.
Scored a hat trick, and there was some
one of them
beauties
was
in there.
Amazing. Yeah, the close control. Yeah,
but just because I was there a couple of years ago, and it was such a desperately miserable time during the pandemic, I remember being at Cardiff, Fulham, and Josh Onoma had this tail end, had this incredible tail end to the season. Do you remember?
Yeah,
he'd been a bit part player, and all of a sudden he came to life for the last maybe month of the season. And I've been over at Fulham for a few of those games, and he was really running hot. And he was the difference maker in that playoff game, and he scored a brilliant individual goal at Cardiff. I was at Cardiff on the Saturday, if memory serves me right, and then, or it might have been the other way around. I was at Swansea on the Saturday for Swansea v Brentford, and then I drove to Cardiff, whatever it is, the 40-odd miles, and stayed in Cardiff in a completely deserted town centre hotel. Couldn't even get any grub the next day because we were still in the midst of the pandemic. It was kind of like a lunchbox from reception if you wanted any food. It was so bizarre. But obviously at that stage, I think commentary teams and what have you were the exception in getting into grounds. Went over to Cardiff for the Fulham game and was treated to that brilliant Onoma goal. So that one stands out to me just because I was there. And he was really in the purple patch at that time.
Can I just say quickly about that Jack Marriott goal? I was sat up in that big stand at Leeds, looking down on it. It's one of the best bits of captaincy I've ever seen from Richard Keogh, right? Because Leeds got the red card, and he was like, "We're going to win this in." Was that? I think that was still normal time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That one didn't go to extra time, did it in the end? I can't remember anyway. He was like, "We can win this." And you literally saw him push his team like 5 meters up the pitch and say, go for it, go for it. And it was him that nicked the ball, came out and played Marriott in. And no one ever really mentions that when they're talking about that. But yeah, outstanding. John Sheridan's free kick, going back to 1987 for that one, still managed to lose. Paul Furlong versus Oldham down in League One as well. We had a Marcus Stewart and a Deeney shout there, which were also mentioned by us. Right, let's move on, and we're going to talk about some newcomers to the Championship, although they're quite familiar newcomers, Sam. It's time for the meltdown moment. So it's now confirmed that Burnley are definitely joining Sheffield United in coming down to the Championship. And unless Luton win by 6 and Forest lose by 6 on the same day, it's going to be Luton as well. I spoke about this on the channel yesterday, so I don't really need to touch this one, Sam. But how disappointed are you that the 3 promoted teams have all come straight back down? Do you think that points to any kind of systemic issues, or is it just a bit of a outlier season that they all went in one go? I think it's the first time in 25 years or something. What's your take?
It does feel like a little bit of an outlier because I was so optimistic, I think, about Burnley in particular. You hope that Sheffield United, having lost those couple of players, the last knock-ins really of the summer, wouldn't affect them too badly, but it really did. I think, it's been well publicised that they actually probably came into the season weaker than they finished the Championship season, and I probably would concur with that. And there's been, some decent performances sporadically in the last few weeks, but yeah, it's been a wretched season for them. Burnley has been a big surprise to me, and now they're back in the Championship. I suppose we can reflect on what they did so well in the Championship because they're going to be back there this season. And I thought of those extremely talented forward players, talking about Benson, Zaruri, the guys who really fired them to that promotion to be such bit part players, so much so that both of them, I think both have been out on loan, haven't they? Certainly Zaruri has been. That was the biggest surprise to me. They were the guys last summer that I would have earmarked to anyone who doesn't watch the Championship. Watch these two. They'll make the step up. No problem at all. And they did it with Cullen being that kind of linchpin in the midfield. I think Martin was a big miss this season. I think he was really pivotal to what they were in the Championship. A lot of their good play was him kind of inverting or him joining in on the left-hand side. So I think they had to change to a degree the setup. That's inevitable when you lose players and you go up. But yeah, to see them take so long to get to grips with the Premier League has been a massive surprise to me. I think I read this morning they spent close to 100 million. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, 95. It's over 100 million euros, so about 95 million quid. If the figures on transfer marked, which I got that number from, are in any way near correct.
Which is incredible. So,
well, that's all your TV money for the year, isn't it?
Yeah. And the one big positive is that Vincent Kompany, you would imagine, will still be there, although there may be interest in him, and he can remold the squad. And if they come back down with anywhere near the quality they had last time in the Championship, they'll be right amongst the favourites. Luton, I don't know. I think you'd have that motivation amongst the players, won't you, to get back to where they have been in the Premier League. And I think the reality is that there'll be 3 or 4 players straight away who will be high on the list of priorities for other clubs. I think of Adebayo, Carlton Morris, I think, was one that I was confident could step up to the Premier League because of his technical ability. Alfie Doughty, I think, unquestionably, just probably because more the numbers. His last few weeks,
crossing numbers, yeah,
his form's been a little bit indifferent. When I've seen him, looks a bit fatigued. Barkley, obviously, they're going to be Premier League clubs that are going to take Barkley now. So I don't know what they're going to look like next year, Luton. I do have incredible confidence that they'll get the signings right when they attack the Championship next year.
Don't we all?
And I'm sure if Rob Edwards stays there, they'll be competitive again. But whether they can do it once more, I think that's tough. I think that's tough to imagine. But the club's going to be in such a better place than it was.
Oh.
And Chris Wilder's already remoulding. There's talk of, I think he's going to lose Ahmed Hodzic, and there's a few other big money signings that haven't really produced. I noticed they're linked with Anthony Patterson at Sunderland, Luke Ayling, another one that's been linked. So it looks like he's going to go maybe for that Championship experience, cherry pick some of the best players from the teams that maybe haven't been threatening promotion the last couple of seasons. A little bit of an unknown quantity, aren't they, Sheffield United? But yeah, with Chris Wilder still there, you'd have all 3, wouldn't you? You'd have all 3 around it. It's just how the squad's
that was going to be my next question, Sam. You can either answer top 2, top 6, or top 10. Okay, you can only answer those 3 things. So Burnley,
top 6. There could be a reoccurring theme here, mate.
I'll go top 2 for Burnley. I think.
Would you?
Yeah. Luton, I'd go top 6.
Yeah, top 6.
And Sheffield United, I think that might take them a couple of seasons. I'll go top 10.
Can I change it now?
Of course you can.
Sheffield United. Yeah, there's probably more to do there, isn't there? Top 6.
So you got all 3 of them in the top 6. There we go. But very interesting wrinkle. And I know people get bored of talking about it, but what that does mean is only 2 years worth of parachute payments coming down for those 2 guys. And if we lose Southampton or Leeds, only 4 parachute teams in the division. And you can make an argument that makes it more even, or you can make an argument that those 4 will just be able to dominate even more. But there we go. We are going to move on to our cause for concern. A bit of a peek behind the curtain here, Sam, just to get your experience of this time of the year in the Championship and all divisions. We see release lists come. Talk to me about the reality for football players. You know, it's their living, their life's work. And we get to this point, and it feels like sometimes it's a decision that's depends on where they finish at the end of the season or what have you, that can be quite a short term, quite a surprise. How does it work with players being released from their contracts? When do they find out? What happens? You know, are they released and they're, go on then, bugger off, find a new club. You've got no income anymore. How does this all work?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's dependent on kind of when the season finishes. So, obviously the teams that are in the playoffs, that uncertainty will be around you until after the playoffs are complete or you get knocked out.
Remember the lad Darbo who missed the penalty for Coventry? Got released a week later, didn't he? One kick from the Premier League.
I think the reality is that the majority of players would have an inkling what their outcome is going to be, what their immediate future is going to be. Like the likelihood of there being a contract offer there, you'd probably be quite confident, or the reality of you moving on, you'd probably have an inkling. But generally, these conversations don't take place until 2 or 3 days after the end of your season. So it's a real period of uncertainty. I think there'd always be maybe 2 or 3 in each squad where you're really in the balance. So that release can come as a real surprise. You are kind of safeguarded. Apologies if I don't get the timescale right here, but I do believe you used to get at the end of your contract another month's pay, kind of grace period. So you're contracted maybe till the end of June or the end of July. I can't remember which way around it is. And you normally get another month's kind of wages. And whether that came through the club or the PFA, I can't quite recall, but that's how it seems to work. So you don't have that month of kind of limbo and no financial security through the summer. That's the way I remembered it. And then, like anything, you're just looking for clubs. Normally the agents doing the talking. And yeah, sometimes you'll go in at pre-season, won't you, for a week or 2 just to have a look at things, maybe a trial period somewhere. Or if you're in high demand, you can obviously organise that that transfer, that free transfer, or that move between you and your agent. But yeah, of course there'll be players playing probably in the Wembley games over this weekend and next weekend who probably won't be at the club next year, and it's tough, isn't it? Because you see all the celebrations, all the teams that have been promoted, and the reality is, even like I saw the pictures of the Portsmouth lads away in Vegas. The reality is, 5 of those players, you're celebrating, but you're knowing that you're not going to be there at the start of the next season. So it can be quite tough.
Strange times indeed. So do look. I think people, they forget the actual impact when they just see a release list. All they're thinking about is, who's coming and who's going. But it did strike me, Sam, when a lot of those were coming out, that less so maybe for Championship players, because we think their financial security is a bit better.
Of course,
there.
yeah.
But just down one level, this is people's lives and people's livelihoods, etc., etc. And before we go on to our mouth-watering matchup, we are brought to you in association with the wonderful people at Match Bingo. As ever, you can play tonight in the gigantic Premier League game, which I'm sure Man City will be 3-0 up within 10 minutes, and everyone will switch off then, knowing where the league title is going. But I'm sure you guys here are more interested in the playoff cards, and they are, if you just click on games on the Match Bingo app, you can see them down at the bottom there. You've got Leeds and Norwich on Thursday, Southampton and West Brom on Friday. I will be purchasing one of each for our watch-alongs and playing along. We'd love you to play along too. No freebie game, so you will have to pay £2. And if you're going to head over, then please do follow in that QR code. Plenty of prizes to win there. £275 prize pot on both of these games. Normal warning, suggestion, good idea. Please play responsibly. And we are headed to a non-championship mouthwatering matchup. People often ask me, Sam, about our ideal lineups. I've got to say, we have been a little bit spoilt with Portsmouth and Derby. We like historical clubs with big fan bases, and we've already got two of them back in the Championship. It's going to be Bolton versus Oxford in the playoff final. We had this weird thing in the League One playoffs this year where Bolton and Barnsley literally played in the playoffs last year. And of course, Peterborough famously had that turnaround comeback game. They lost to Sheffield Wednesday. Oxford were the only one not in there. They've got themselves to the final. I'll let you say very, very last, who would you like to see in the Championship? But just give me your thoughts on those two clubs. And I think Championship fans will quite like the style of both of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I think, take Bolton first. It's been kind of real steady progress over the last kind of 3 or 4 years. I think they were promoted from League Two, and then they had a 9th place finish, 5th place finish, and 3rd place finish, obviously losing in that playoff semi-final to Barnsley last year. So it does feel like this is the natural progression, if you like, to make it up this season, albeit it'll have to be by the playoffs. Yeah, they make the pitch really big. Invariably, it's a kind of 3-5-2. Josh Sheehan is the deep line midfield player, which a lot of it goes through. They got one of the most outstanding goal getters in the division this year in Dion Charles. They actually moved in the market last January to try and get themselves promoted last year, and it didn't really translate. But this year they went and got Aaron Collins, who was scoring a lot of goals for Bristol Rovers. I think he's been around the Welsh squads, so that's a nice combination in attack, Collins and Charles. So watch out for that at Wembley. I think those two finished the season particularly strong. So yeah, they're an easy on the eye team. Interestingly, against Barnsley in the first leg, they went a little bit back to front. I think it was probably to counteract.
It's not just in the Championship, Sam. People are changing their tactics specifically for playoff first legs.
Yeah, I mean, Barnsley, I think, are notoriously hard-working, in your face. So I just think Ian Evatt decided to just bypass that early pressure. And it was a little bit unlike them because they're very much possession-based. But obviously they got a healthy lead in that first leg at Oakwell and were able to just about get over the line in the second leg. They beat Oxford 5-0 in March at Bolton Stadium. So whether that's going to have any impact, we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure it'll be, relatively fresh in the Oxford players' minds going into this one. But Oxford have been on something of an upturn. Des Buckingham went in to replace Liam Manning when he was poached by Bristol City. It was a really difficult first few months for him. I think it was something like 4 wins in 20 or something along those lines.
Manning left them up there, didn't he?
He left them up there. The thought was there was a little bit of an outlier in terms of the statistics. I think they were running really hot, and maybe having a little bit of good fortune, and that certainly plateaued under Des Buckingham. But yeah, I saw them in the semi-final. This is a really attacking, exciting team, not too bothered about defending. They had this little flurry of Victories just before the tail end of the season. They won 4-0 back-to-back and won 5-0 as well. So they've got exciting players going forward in Mark Harris, top goal scorer, who some of the viewers will know from Cardiff. Murphy on one side, Owen Dale on the other side. Cameron Brannigan, arguably their best player and a goal threat, but he plays in holding midfield at the moment, which I think encapsulates just how front forward they are and how front footed they are. Sorry. So yeah, they have a real go, Oxford. That said, I'd probably anticipate Bolton to do the majority of the possession, to do the majority of the probing, and Oxford have this kind of electricity when they break, especially down the flanks with Murphy and Dale. So it should be quite a nice contrast. And they've just seen off Peterborough, who I would say are quite a similar team to Bolton. And I think we'll have the confidence, given they've just had a brilliant night, against the odds, really. I think everyone would have anticipated Peterborough turning it around. So it should be a good game.
Who do you think we're seeing lifting the trophy, getting back? I've got to say, for diversity and variety, we have not seen Oxford in the second tier. I don't know if anyone can tell me in the chat for decades. I think late 90s was it? Maybe I remember Ipswich playing them in the late 90s. I could be wrong about that. Bolton, you're right. They've been on a hell of a journey. They were last in the Championship in 2018-19. But if you remember, it was ridiculous, wasn't it? It was massive financial troubles, and they were going to. I think it was the next season where they ended up having to play all their youth players and losing 5-0 week after week after week. So anyway, what's your take?
Well, as an ex-Swindon player, I couldn't possibly sit here and say that Oxford are going to get promoted, because that would be a part of the West Country that I won't be able to visit. So I think I'll go for Bolton, but I'll go for it to be tight. Maybe just in that midfield area. They got Magomo, who's a very good player. They got good options there. Dempsey, Sheehan, I like. And I just think, maybe the old cliche, the big, wide Wembley surface, that power in the middle may be pivotal. Again, against Oxford, who I love, the three midfield players, a really good Goodrum, Rodriguez and Brannigan. But like I said, they're very, very forward-thinking. So I'll go for Bolton to edge it.
There you go. I will plead the fifth because I'm not a member of the excellent What the EFL podcast like Sam is, so he clearly knows more about this than I do. But we will be welcoming yet another team into the Championship. And it's going to be either Bolton or Oxford. It's a win-win situation, isn't it, Sam? Right, let's get on to the quiz and get your questions primed for Mr. Parkin after we've played the week that was. So you had a good week last week, Sam. You got 10 for 10 on the away records question from our man Fev at Fev's Football Analytics on Twitter. So you are up by 3, which means unless we do a double round or something, I think you're taking the crown here. But it's all about today. Would you like to go first or second, Sam?
I will go first, please.
Okay. Your question for Sam, Fev says, 4 teams have been to the playoff finals twice or more and won them all, i.e. never lost. And I think he's looking at just the Championship from what I can see here. 4 teams have been to the playoff finals twice or more and won them all, i.e. never lost. Who are those teams?
No idea.
So playoff finalists more than once and won every time they've been there.
Did they lose? They won. I'm going to say Fulham.
Yes, and
beat
one
Villa.
of them. Yeah, so they beat
Villa
against
Villa and beat Brentford.
the year you were talking about with Onamar.
Beat Brentford, yeah. Joe Bryan, wasn't it? Yeah. That's a good get. I'm delighted with one. Okay, I'm thinking it's got to be Championship, yeah?
I think they're all Championship from what I
Yeah,
can see here.
okay.
Oh no, they're not. No, sorry, they're not. I've just seen the one at the bottom is not a Championship playoff win. There's a League One win in there. I can see.
Okay, well, I that's what I just thought. I'm going to go Charlton.
And the one I was saying is Charlton.
Yeah, because they beat obviously the Sunderland on penalties,
Sunderland
wasn't
twice,
it? Yeah, Sunderland twice. Oh, I just had another one there, and it's just gone from my mind. It's just gone from my mind. I had another one there. Oh, the Charlton threw me. Give me a second. I had it.
You got two more.
I got it. I'm going to go for another London team. Weirdly, Palace.
You're unlucky with Palace. They're the most times winners, but they do have a defeat in there.
Right. I was just thinking they beat they beat Watford, didn't they? 1-0. Kevin Phillips.
Yeah.
And I can't think of the other one. Okay, I'll have one more stab. I'll have one more stab.
Neil Shipley at the Millennium Stadium as well. Sorry. Anyway, carry on.
Oh yeah, that was against West Ham, wasn't it? So that was one of my thoughts. Okay, I'm gonna have to go outside of London. They've been up a few times. I'll go for Hull City.
Yes, Hull is in there. So
Bristol City 1-0, yeah.
Dean Windass, and then who was that huge, great central midfielder? Bent one in against Sheffield Wednesday. What was his name?
Ian Ashby.
No. Big African central midfielder, 2016. Someone will tell me in the Mo Diame.
Okay.
Remember him? Smacked one in against Sheffield Wednesday.
All right, I think I'll declare it 3.
You're going to be really disappointed with the last one because it's Swindon.
Swindon won 2 playoff finals, Leicester and the other one.
I'm guessing the one in the early 90s where they won it and couldn't go up because of the
Aussie Ardiles,
irregularities. Yes, right. Let me turn my phone off and wait to receive my question, Sam.
That was not good. I did pretty well there. I'm happy with that.
3 for 4.
Yeah, should probably get Swindon considering I probably interviewed most of those blokes that were involved. Okay, so 4 playoff finals have had 7 goals in total, or more. Sorry, 7 or more goals in total. Can you name the 8 teams? Half a point each. 8 teams in the 4 playoff finals that have had 7 or more goals.
So you mentioned Sunderland and Charlton in 98.
Yeah, that's a point.
Was Reading Swansea, was that 4-3 or was it 4-2? I think it might have been 4-2, which doesn't count because there's 7 or more goals, isn't it? Also, was Bolton and Reading, was that 4-3? Are these just Championship ones?
Yeah, all champ.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go Bolton and Reading. I think that was 4-3.
Yeah, that's a point. So you got 2 points. One game, or certainly one team's already, 2 teams that here have already been mentioned. One game I can't really recall, bit before our times.
7 goals. That's a lot. So Ipswich Barnsley was 4-2, wasn't it? I'm sure Swansea Reading was 4-2 and not 4-3. But you're blinking on that one.
Well, you've already got Reading, haven't you?
Yeah.
So they're not going to be there again, are they? Because you've already got Bolton 4, Reading 3, yeah?
Yeah, none of the recent ones. These are just finals, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, none of the recent ones have had 7 goals, have they? Oh, I'm struggling here, Sam. In which, so I'll go Swansea then.
No Swansea.
So that must have been 4-2. Wolves, Sheffield United, no.
I'll give you the years.
Yeah, please, yeah.
1989 and 1993. I think I did have a recollection of this one because I went the following season to watch one of these teams. So 1989.
Oh, isn't it Swindon and who did Swindon beat? Glenn Hoddle beat him on his own, didn't he? Oh my God. Swindon's one of them, yeah?
Yeah, Swindon's. That's, yeah.
Who did they beat? I can't think who they beat. I
Maybe
don't
go out of your
know.
misery.
Yeah, please.
Leicester.
And so the one in the 80s, I can't get that one.
That was Crystal Palace 4, Blackburn 3.
That was over 2 legs, wasn't it? I might have to pick Fev up on that one. Ian Wright would have played in that. Ian Wright and Mark Bright. Fev's is never wrong, is he? Oh, I'm sure they weren't they 2-legged finals then.
You got 2.5 anyway.
Yeah, 2.5. All right, I'll give you the win then, Sam. I thought I was going to do quite well on that when it was playoffs. I'm normally good on that. There you go. Diame. Someone's called it out. Adrian in the chat. Right, guys, get questions in for Sam. We are about 4 minutes off the hour. So stick a Q before it. Stick a question mark after it. Normal housekeeping here. If you're watching live right now, stick the thumbs up. And if you're listening after the fact, 5-star review. Sam. Is Ipswich's overall style of play suited to the Premier League more than it was to Division 1 and the Championship? The defensive issues are more to do with personnel rather than tactics. Thoughts?
My thoughts being, I think, I was going to start by saying like they're quite expansive, they're quite open, Ipswich, but I think there's real kind of athleticism there within that. So I wouldn't be, really fearful that, what happened to Burnley early part of the season is going to be replicated here. But I think inevitably when you step up, there has to be a degree of caution. There has to be some adapting. I think we saw it probably most successfully by Brentford maybe in the last couple of years, where they have quite clearly attacked the Premier League in a different way to which
they were
got
quite
success.
tippy-tappy in the Championship, weren't they?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they were really strong and, good on plays and stuff, weren't they?
Kind of see maybe something akin to that happening. I think Kieran McKenna's that good, and I think the planning will be that detailed. Maybe not in this first season, but I think there has to be a little bit of caution, doesn't there, going into the Premier League? And then maybe you'd see Ipswich, if they can consolidate, play a little bit more akin to what they did in the Championship this year once they get their feet under the table as such. But who knows, really, is my genuine answer to that. But I just don't think they were, I don't know, would you refer to Ipswich in a similar ilk that you were Burnley last season, or do you think it's a different style? I don't think they're as obsessed with having the ball as they were.
Slightly
I think
different, isn't it?
I think there's been times this year when they would play behind for Hurst, or they would rely on the athleticism of a Burns, Leif Davis on the other side. So I don't think it's probably been as possession heavy as Burnley, and probably as easy to play against. So even if they went up with what they've got now, I think they'd probably be give teams a tough game, but they need some signings. Clearly, I think you'd agree they're going to have to improve in all the areas. That's the reality of it.
Yeah. Sean said this: should the playoff semis be one leg with higher seed at home? I don't think so, Sean. I think personally, I'm totally happy with them the way they are. I know it's always a fun debate what you would change. I had a fun conversation with my mate at the Norwich Leeds game saying, what about no penalties? And that's where you give higher rank. So if it goes to extra time, then the lower ranked team has basically got to go and win there. So I don't know. They're all fun conversations.
I think I scribbled it down, the exact same point to bring to you earlier. I don't know what the negative would be to it. It would do me out of work if it was only one leg. I know that much.
Well, but Sam, the people that say it's unfair, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's surely more fair if you've got 2 games, because you could get a dodgy red card at the start of one of those games, having finished 17 points ahead, and you don't have a second leg to make it up.
But you get the home advantage, yeah.
You would get the home advantage. Yeah. I don't know. It's a fun debate, isn't it? But I love them just the way they are, in the words of Billy Joel. Chollis, will next year be a rarity in that the 3 relegated teams struggle back in the Championship? I don't think they'll all struggle, Sam, but I don't think it's going to be quite as dominant as this year. Do you?
No, I don't. No, I'd agree with you. I mean, I've just chucked them all in the top 6 a few minutes ago, but
right, yeah.
That's because I just didn't want to offend anyone, clearly. But no, I think we knew that Leeds, Southampton, and Leicester would be in the top 4 or 5, didn't we? And I don't think there's that certainty this season. I think because Luton haven't been established in the Premier League for many a year. There's been quite a lot of chaos at Sheffield United, and obviously we don't really know what the future is going to hold for Burnley.
No.
But they did come down under Sean Dyche, if you remember. They made it up under him. They came down straight away, and then the next time they got into the Premier League, they'd learnt from their lessons and they stuck around for many a year. So I suppose the Burnley fans can take hope and optimism from that.
Adrian, should Leif Davis make the England squad? It's too early, isn't it? Sammy's got to play some top-level games, hasn't he?
Yeah. How old is he now?
Pass.
22?
Early 20s, isn't he? I'll look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, he's going to have to play in the top division. There was clamour for Jack Grealish, was there, in the Championship a few years ago? I think that's probably the last time we were having this type of conversation. But yeah, I wouldn't imagine he's going to be close until
24.
Yeah, 24. Right. Okay. So he's getting to an age where he'd be considered if he does it for half a season or so in the Premier League. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. An ex-Ipswich loanee, who my colleague Matt Davis-Adams has been touting for the England squad, Trevor Chalobah.
Interesting.
If there's another injury or two.
Poor fella. If ever you went to a club on loan at the wrong time, Trev, yeah.
Great example of a lad who I'd say he is technically quite efficient now, but who has just had the most incredible attitude, I think, over the years. And despite a few less than outstanding loan moves, has forced his way into the Chelsea team and done brilliantly. So I always use him as a great example.
Do a couple more. If Sam could have played in any team from any era, who would it have been and why?
Any team from any era. QPR, that's what he wants me to say. 95, 96. 95, 96 when he finished top London club. Trevor I'd have gone up there alongside
Sinton.
Alongside Kevin Gallen when Les Ferdinand was having a rare day off. How about that? That's the best team. The best period I had watching football was that time. That was a great team.
What do you think Kieran McKenna and Gareth Southgate were talking about the Villa-Liverpool game last night? Probably talking about like recipes, or I don't know what's that thing on Netflix that everyone's watching, the Stalker thing. They're probably talking about that, weren't they?
I didn't see the game actually, so I didn't see this. But good to see him cracking on with the old scouting missions. I don't know. I'd imagine Gareth Southgate was full of praise and admiration for what he's done. So yeah, maybe getting some tactics off him ahead of the Euros.
Quickly, a couple more. Michael, with FFP&S taking more effect this season, you see Championship clubs tightening their spending. Hull push the boat. I mean, if I can take this, Sam, I think Michael, they've been tightening. I think there's a pattern over 3 or 4 years now. It's only the odd one that really kind of goes for it, and going for it in the Championship now basically means spending a couple of million on 1 or 2 players, and not like it used to be. Do you remember that transfer window Middlesbrough had where they signed Britta Sombalonga and Ashley Fletcher for like 22 million? That's what going for it was in 2017 or 2018 or whenever that happened. But yeah, I think that pattern goes that way. Wilco. Many pundits class the 23-24 Championship season as the toughest group of teams, with the prospect of Bolton does 24-25 top that. I make his argument good in terms of the teams coming up, but not in terms of the teams coming down into it. No disrespect. Yeah. Who was it? Rotherham. No, it wasn't Rotherham. It was Ipswich, Plymouth, and Sheffield Wednesday. We thought Sheffield Wednesday were going to be better than they were. But anyway, what's your take, Sam?
Yeah, I think that probably levels it out, doesn't it? With the three that are coming down from the Premier League, this is as strong a three to come up. Yeah, I suppose we'll have to wait and see what happens between Bolton and Oxford. I'm anticipating, obviously, Bolton doing it there, which is doing Oxford a complete disservice, because that would be really nice. I think for the neutrals and the people that support Championship teams to have a new ground to go to, and new naming in Oxford United coming up. But yeah, Portsmouth and Derby, I think both of those teams with the class of Mousinho, what he's done that first year, and Paul Warren's experience, I could see those two being really difficult sides to play next year. So yeah, I think I'm probably in the middle there, because I just don't see, obviously, Sheffield United, Burnley and Luton necessarily having the power that those three did coming down last season.
I just want to, this will be the last one, and I can just say yes to it. Simon, do the powers that be have to rethink across the board with regards to promoted Championship sides being competitive in the Premier League? Seems you have to risk breaching the rules to breach the gap. I totally agree with that. It's just got very, very silly now, doesn't it? Where you've got three teams coming down, and Nottingham Forest survived and they breached. Fulham have survived 2 seasons now, but they had the biggest wage budget in transfer history. So it does feel we're a little bit at tipping point with all the financial stuff. But I know Sam glazes over and says, Ben, can we talk about the football, please, at that point? And we've enjoyed talking about the football ahead of 2 Championship playoff semi-finals on Thursday and Friday. I'll be watching along with both of them. Come and join us for that. And it is the League One on Saturday, is it, Sam?
League One Saturday, League Two Sunday, I think.
So League One on Saturday is the one we're looking at, because that will give us our 3rd promoted team up from the 3rd tier, who we will be covering next season, obviously. And we will be back early next week with a playoff semi-final second leg review and a playoff final. So I had another 30 million on now. The 230 million pound game. We'll be looking at that next week. Come and join me and Sam. Sam, as ever, last word from you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully we get a few goals on Thursday and Friday evening, and look forward to previewing the big day next week.